Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. We're here once again with the High Elves, going to be battling up against the Beastmen. My forces are going to be led by a princess on a moon dragon, and the Beastmen are going to be led by Khazrak the One-Eye. So let's go ahead and jump straight to the army compositions. For those of you who watched my Cirtha Elf game a few days ago, you know I've been tinkering around with the High Elves, trying some mobile type builds with minimal infantry and lots of mobile units. We're going to be doing that once again here with a little bit of a different philosophy. So this time we've gone for an Ellyrion Reaver build rather than a Tirnoch Chariot build. So the focus is going to be with these 4 Ellyrion Reaver Archers. So Ellyrion Reaver Archers are a very solid missile cav. Let's go ahead and talk through what makes them so good. Have 140 range, which is really nice for a skirmish cav. They, you know, they don't do the most armor-piercing damage, but they don't do a minimal amount either. They have 3, which is pretty good for a non-AP type. They've also got solid combat stats, of course, especially with martial prowess being active. 32 and 34 with 27 weapon strength, a 24 charge bonus, 90 speed. Of course, low armor at only 40, since they are a light cavalry unit, but a very solid light cavalry unit all around. They are a bit expensive at 750 points, but against a low armor faction like the Beastmen, they can definitely pay themselves off. So we've, of course, got the princess up on the moon dragon. She's also got a non-armor piercing missile attack, 170 missile damage with 50 armor piercing. We've got armor-piercing melee with flaming attacks, which means she's going to be great at, you know, focusing down characters. Armored infantry like Bestigor and Morgur, of course, is weak to fire damage, so if my opponent were to have brought Morgur, she'd be very good at kind of gooning him as well. But instead, my opponent has opted for Khazrak, and I'm not really sure who the best Beastman Lord is against the High Elves. There's pluses and minuses to all of them. We'll talk about that in a minute. We've also got 2 Ellyrion Reavers Vanguarded deployed out on the flanks. Both are going to be inundated by Chaos Poison Warhounds and Centaurs with great weapons. We've got 1 here and 1 up by this beautiful tower. We've also got a Life Mage here with Earthblood and Regrowth. And in terms of the quote-unquote infantry line, we've got 4 units of Roadblock Spearmen just kind of scattered all around the map with 2 units of Dragon Princes. So of course, Dragon Princes are the heavy hitters here. 80 charge bonus, 44 weapon strength. They've also got physical resistance of 25%, martial mastery, 110 armor, 78 speed makes them one of the fastest heavy shock cavalry units in the game. And they're just a solid unit all around, especially against a faction that generally lacks armor, like the Beastmen. Even something like, you know, Minotaurs with great weapons, if these Dragon Princes get a clean charge on them with that 80 charge bonus and 44 weapon strength, they'll do a ton of damage to, you know, Minotaurs, Centaurs with great weapons, all that jazz. So let's go ahead and take a look at my opponent's build here. He's, of course, got Khazrak the One-Eye on his chariot, a Brace Shaman Lore of Death also on a chariot, which is going to be a solid choice. Pretty common pick against the High Elves, Fate of Una and Spear Leech. Nothing too surprising there. We've also got Gorbel, of course, anti-large armor piercing, ostensibly to help protect Khazrak from dragons. Infantry corps is going to be a couple of Bestigor with 3 Ungor Spearman Herd, and of course he's also got the mobile forces of the Centaurs and Poison Warhounds out on each flank. So let's go ahead and kick things into full gear and watch what happens. So my first order of business is, since he's advancing with his infantry straight up the pipe, we're going to kind of circle around and just focus fire in on the Cygor. We've got the Ellyrion Reavers melee variants on the far side holding off the Centaurs with great weapons and Chaos Poison Warhounds. This one has been hit by a Regrowth, actually, to give it extra physical resistance and regeneration, of course. They're going to actually trade very cost effectively now with that unit of Centaurs. They're pretty much beating this unit of Centaurs with great weapons, which, considering they're considerably cheaper, it's very impressive. Just focus firing now on the Cygor with the units of Ellyrion Reavers. We are going to take a little bit of return fire here, but just the amount of volume of fire here with the pretty high damage arrows of the Ellyrion Reaver Archers is going to be able to take that Cygor down pretty quickly. The Princess had been focusing on the Cygor, now going to pop some shots off on Khazrak. We're going to get a little bit of an infantry engagement underway here as I use these Roadblock Spearmen to set up some anvils for the hammer of my Dragon Princes here. This unit of Dragon Princes, unfortunately, is going to get hit by a Fate of Una. You can see that template popping up there now, and Khazrak also interrupting their charge So they're going to start to take a ton of damage, and yeah, that Fate of Yuna is going to be devastating to a very expensive cavalry unit like Dragon Princess. So very nice play from my opponent, dropping in the dragon into melee here, doing that nice armor-piercing damage on these Vestigor. Of course, the Princess doesn't have the best melee stats. She will definitely take some damage in this fight, but of course the armor-piercing in melee is going to help bail out these spearmen and potentially cause a terror rout as well. Ellyrion Reaver archers have finished off the Cygor for the most part. The Ellyrion Reavers on this side did get broken, unfortunately, and the Hounds did come down, but Hounds will lose to Ellyrion Reaver archers in melee. Meanwhile, we've got another unit just kind of kiting this unit of Centaurs around. Looks like Gorbel's also chasing, now turning back, which is a nice use of resources for me. It's a little bit unfortunate for my opponent to have so many resources tied up there with that relatively cheap. I say relatively cheap. 750 points is actually pretty expensive for a skirmish cav, but nonetheless, we are going to be able to clean up this pocket here. The Dragon Princess did get routed off by that Fate of Yuna, and one of the units of Spearmen did get crushed. This unit of Spearmen is in a very dire situation, being attacked by these Ungor Spearmen on one side and Vestigor on the other. We're going to come in with the Dragon Princess to help bail them out here, getting a beautiful charge, just lancing through the side, and those Ungor Spearmen herd, unfortunately, are not going to get their bracing bonus, and that pitiful anti-large bonus and non-armor piercing attacks is going to do very little against the Dragon Princess, especially with that Earthblood being dropped, and now a regrowth being dropped on top of that as well as soon as it runs out. So we're just going to get that continuous healing and extra physical resistance. They're going to take almost no damage here. Now dropping in the Dragon Princess into combat, going to be getting a nice terror rout. All those Ungors immediately break and flee, and we're going to be able to do some nice damage to those Vestigor herd as well. So what originally was looking like a pretty dire situation is starting to turn back in our favor. Of course, the balance of power is still in the Beastman's favor, but at this point I feel pretty confident we can try and isolate some of the leadership units here. Dragon Princess has got her paws on Khazrak and going to be fighting. That being said, Khazrak on the Chariot does have armor piercing in melee, and although he's meant as more of an anti-infantry type character, he still can do some damage to large type units. You can see the Dragon Princess has taken a bit of damage here, dishing out some heavy damage though up against Khazrak the One-Eye. With those buffs he has though, he's got 420 weapon strength, 63 melee attack, so he will make some okay contact. Another Fate of Yuna being dropped on those Dragon Princes there. A very nice play, but I'm going to immediately counter with the Earthblood to try and counteract that as much as possible. Earthblood doesn't quite put out the same DPS, or HPS rather, that Fate of Yuna puts out in DPS, but it is going to help counteract that a little bit there, but still pretty devastating on those Dragon Princes from that Deathcaster there. But we have got the the Life Mage in now, just doing rear attacks here, and oh man, that lone Spearman that was there helping just got cleaved by Khazrak. But very, very beautiful battle. We've got the beautiful High Elven architecture in the background, and the sunset, the dragon fighting here. It's very cinematic, beautiful game. Yeah, the Ellyrion Reavers have cleaned up quite a bit now. They've been able to chase down, these Vestigor herd and mostly render them combat ineffective. They're now chasing down a lot of the other supporting units here and just kind of breaking things up, keeping any support from being able to get to these heroic units now as we isolate them with what remains of the Spearmen. These Dragon Princes as well. Gorbel is going to be doing some nice damage in here, but we're going to be able to bring the dragon out and then back in and just kind of cycle charge. We have a couple units of Spearmen that are able to just kind of stand here and distract a lot of these units while we then kind of, cycle in and out with the Dragon Princes, with the Ellyrion Reavers, and of course the Dragon Princess herself. She's going to be coming down. Another Spirit Leech being dropped from my opponent. He's been hitting my lord with that Spirit Leech relentlessly, but Khazrak does go down here. That's going to put a major dent in the balance of power finally in my favor, and then one or two more attacks to take out this Deathcaster, and that'll swing the balance of power in a dramatic shift into my favor. And yeah, Gorbel's now completely isolated, surrounded by Ellyrion Reavers, Spearmen, Dragon Princes, and a dragon. Really not in a really good situation. So the Life Mage is going to be chasing off the Death Mage there, and a little bit of an ironic twist of fate. And yeah, we are going to be able to carry the day. And well played by my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this battle. It was a very fun battle, and a lot of people say that the High Elves are underpowered. Some people say that they're overpowered, and I don't really know where that comes from, but if you know how to counter them, I think the High Elves, especially if you look at the competitive tournament scene, they just really don't get the most love. I don't know. They're a little bit one-dimensional in a lot of aspects, some people think, but I've found a lot of success going with, very mobile-centric builds. With the High Elves, it does require quite a bit of micro, but you can see it's very, very effective. So yeah, In terms of the army breakdown here, you can see the one unit of Dragon Princes that got hit by that early faded unit and chased off did absolutely nothing. The other unit, though, 206 kills and an XP chevron. This unit of Ellyrion Reavers that got hit by that regrowth held it very well on that side, 42 kills and an XP chevron, basically rendered that Centaur with Great Weapon combat ineffective. The other one did a good job of holding them up on that flank for a time. They definitely got beaten down, but Ellyrion Reaver archers doing some nice damage, chasing down routing units and using their bows to take down that Cygor. It only got 13 kills and, yeah, was pretty much combat ineffective, did not pay itself off at all. So they definitely did their job. The Spearmen also did their job of kind of being roadblocks, as did the Dragon Princess, dropping in that key AP and terror on the Bestigor, and then the armor piercing in the late game against the heroic chariots. So, yeah, very nicely played for my build here. It worked out exactly like how I had planned, more or less. For my opponent's build, I very much agree with most of his picks here. Gorbel's one pick that the more I play with him, the less excited I am about him, just because the mass issue is a pretty big issue. I think you're, in a lot of situations, better to go with either more Centaurs with great weapons, maybe a unit of Minotaurs with great weapons, Minotaurs with shields, depending on the matchup. I do think in this particular matchup, you're probably going to see a lot of high elf missiles, so Minotaurs with shields would probably be your best bet. They do have a 55% missile block chance from the front, which is pretty decent for a monstrous unit. But, it's a little bit of a tough situation. The other pick that I'm not super crazy about is the Cygor, especially for that map. He was facing a little bit of an uphill situation, and I think it would have benefited him to maybe go with some Centaurs with throwing axes instead to apply that ranged pressure. They can be used against armored infantry, but they're also much better against large targets, and of course their mobility means they're not going to get caught out by, Ellyrion Reavers or things like that. Granted, Centaurs with throwing axes have a lot shorter range than Ellyrion Reavers, so that is one thing to consider, but I'd have to compare their combat stats one-on-one. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look. I'm just curious what the actual difference is here. So let's go ahead and load up the custom battle screen, and we can take a look at the High Elves here and cross-reference them with the Beastmen. So if we look at Ellyrion Reaver archers here, they're 750 points. Solid combat stats. Granted, you have to keep in mind this is without martial prowess, but let's go ahead and take a look at the Centaurs with throwing axes here. 50 points difference, but definitely worse combat stats overall. They do have more weapon strength and charge bonus, but yeah, less melee attack and defense. They're actually a little bit slower baseline, but you have to keep in mind they have Primal Fury, which gives them 12% speed. And, of course, Rowdy gives them perfect vigor as well, as long as they're not wavering or routed. So that's very important. Of course, leadership goes to the High Elves, as does armor. The Centaurs do have slightly more HP, and, of course, they have armor-piercing missile attacks, but they have half the range of the Ellyrion Reaver archers. So yeah, if you can keep these Ellyrion Reaver archers out in front and out of the range of those throwing axes, they will be able to counter them pretty effectively. So interesting matchup. It's a very fun matchup. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. I'm keeping it coming with more Total War Warhammer 2 content every single day, so stay tuned for more, and we'll see you next time.